Job market. Mark Anthony Dyson talks about on his podcast.
Oh, yes. This isn't just about scarce jobs. It's about completely fake postings, fake employers, fake recruiters, even fake advice.
It sounds like a minefield.
It can be. Dyson really stresses vigilance. Job seekers have to verify everything. Research the company Glassdoor, Reddit, wherever. Be super skeptical of unsolicited offers. Check email addresses, websites.
Wow, it adds a whole other layer of stress, doesn't it?
It really does. Coaches, you need to equip your clients to spot these scams. Critical thinking is key here.
Thank you very much for joining me on the Job Scam Report on Substack. This is Mark, and you can find the podcast on several different platforms: Apple Music, Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Substack. I just am going to discover the scam AI generated, and secondly, find out who the real author of the website, and it will tell you a lot about the legitimacy of when you're approached by a recruiter or a hiring manager or somebody trying to refer you to convince you of applying to their job, or they can give you a job. A lot of times if they're lying about the website, then you should definitely abandon ship for sure. But I just want to provide this kind of tool because a lot of people do get confused about how can you tell the difference between a real website and fake. And one of the ways you could tell is by using these one of 20 tools to tell the validity of the website. I want you to go to the show notes as well as, or to go on Substack where you can see the actual 20 tools. I'm not going to go through all of them, but at least you can go for yourself to see and you can access. So you can, when somebody tells you or you're approached, hey, or when you see a job description with a website and it goes to tell you to check out, you can see the website is valid. Now, why this is important, people who usually tell you about a website and it ends up being fake, they're using that as a trap. They figure you won't go through filling out their application or go through their process, but they want your personal information. So the site it tells you to go to a link and it will possibly invade your computer to install some spyware, malware, or it can automatically put you on a mailing list where they may send you something later on for you to click, like, how's your experience? Please go to the site and give us a quick rating. And you press, your computer is infected. So one of the ways, and one of the reasons why you should know this information or be assured this tool will definitely help. A lot of the websites, as you also know, people refer you to are just fake websites, and their URL may be close to an actual URL. All there needs to be is a one-letter difference or a dash or some kind of spelling between a real one and a fake one, because scammers are just trying to build something close but not quite. And what they'll do is they'll copy even a website. Even something easy for them to do is to copy something from a startup, because a startup doesn't have a lot of content on their website yet. They don't have years of pictures or a big staff. They may have a few people on it. And even if they have maybe 100 people on it, they don't have a lot of content on it. And that's a legitimate startup. So what they could do is they can copy one pretty easy. And so when you go to it, it really looks like the same thing. You may even see the real people's pictures they have on the real one, on the fake one. And you go look it up. Let's say you do a little research, you go look it up on LinkedIn. This person must be right. But the site location is all wrong. This tool could be critical for you to have. Another reason for you to think about how you can use a fake job search tool or a verification tool like the ones we have listed. All the promises of a dream job is right in front of your face a lot of times. And if you're in a vulnerable position, you're willing to take a chance. And a lot of people have. And some people have fallen for some of these scams several different times. The list of tools I have listed at least will give you a chance to help you spot them. Even though I think, as we talked about before, one red flag, the approach for the fact a recruiter out of nowhere sends you a text with a link, getting you all hyped up, saying you're a great fit for the position, is not something you should want to go through, because recruiters, one, don't work that way. Secondly, they would, if somebody is approaching you, is because you have a specific qualification for a specific job, and they should be able to tell you. In most cases, they can't. So all to say is this is just something else to put in your arsenal, and I can't express how important. So ultimately, you'll be able to check this any site in case they're offered, and I've said before. You can check the integrity of the recruiter or hiring manager, whoever approaches you, by checking the site. Now, if it's new, like we said, if it's suspect, if the owner is not the company, is suspect. In other words, they may say the company's a Deco, and they tell you to go to careers-or-deco.com and use one of the tools like whois.com. Deco has been around for many years, but you may see, hey, this site has been here only since September of 2024. Then there's a credibility issue. I don't think you need any more information, but if you want to dig a little bit more, you can by using some of the other methods we talked about in past episodes or written on this Substack. I've created as a resource for everyone to use as much as possible. There's some content under paywall, which please consider donating or subscribing. If the site is less than 2 years, like I said, a year, but if it's even less than 2 years, because like I said, there might be a startup, they're just starting, then you probably have to dig a little bit deeper, but they should have the actual name. You can always go to Google and to compare and contrast if you see there's conflicting information, either about the CEO or about the recruiter or about the hiring manager, if they've told you their name. But again, they're ready to be and to err yourself on the side of skepticism is a little bit better than just trusting people. Here are some methods, maybe not some methods, but maybe a philosophy you should follow. The domain, even if it might be less than 6 months old, I wouldn't trust anything a little bit more than or any less than it's a high risk. Even if it's legitimate, I think just using one of these tools using 2 or 3 of them, let's say 3 tools is on the list. Let's say you decide to use, for instance, there's one called Domain Tools, where it also will give you history and some of the hosting information. Sometimes you do have to even check the hosting company, make sure it's even legitimate. And then it will also tell you if the domain has changed hands. Scam Advisor is one. Provides a trust score for websites. You might find it a little bit more useful. There's always the popular Glassdoor, where they may be even they're giving reviews and saying this company's a scam. This fake company might have some listing on Glassdoor, and somebody says, hey, don't trust this company. Here's why you shouldn't. And then there's some sites that will also help you with the recruiter and hiring manager verification. Hunter.io is a good one. There you could check just the flat out email address to see if it actually leads to the actual person. Now, you should check the website first, and the one behind the @ sign, to make sure it's a valid website, and then check the email address. If the website is not valid, the email is no good. There's no use to go any further. But a great resource to use, Hunter.io, an old, reliable one I kept in there. I also recommend you to consider using one of the AI-powered scam detection tools, just to be sure. You may get a lot of these text messages, they don't have your name identified, or it seems like it might be a broad one. And you could it gives you instruction on how to figure out if this site has been flagged for phishing or malware. And one of them is Google Safe Browsing. And then a great one, the other two are also just as good, is a Trend Microsite Safety Checker. It will evaluate if URL is a part of a known scam network, because these things do get reported and word gets around. And there's some companies are working with that's tracking job scams, like the Better Business Bureau. They have the BBB scam tracker. They're tracking it. And they're also, you can go to their site and see there about almost 40,000, if not more than 40,000 at this point, incidents of scams. And they go into great detail, some of them. So I think when you, again, using two or three or more of these tools will ensure your safety if there's doubt and if you're unsure. The Zeus Tracker is also a great one, where it has a black list of IPs or internet protocol or internet addresses involved in financial scams or imposter scams, because companies are getting scammed. They're concerned about fake companies, and you as an employee or a job candidate, I think you should ask an employer how they're handling AI scams and job scams and fake employee situations. Are they prepared for it? Because you want to be as safe as possible as well. So going to be it for the video portion. I hope you'll be able to find this pretty useful. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave comments under the video, or you can leave comments where you listen to the podcast. But those should be, now have more ammo than you have, especially in the past few weeks where I've given a list. And I think I'm going to put a list together and have it posted where it's a comprehensive list in all one place. You may see coming down the pipe in the future, but the last 3 episodes, definitely, if you haven't, you should listen to the one where we talked about 12 job scam myths I bust from last week. And then the week before, I think there was like 11 additional random job scam tips you can follow. And those may even help you think of some others are out there in the internet sphere. So in the meantime, thank you very much for joining me here on the Job Scam Report. Enjoy the rest of the show, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys in the next episode. This next excerpt I'm going to play is from an interview I had with Orlando Haynes, who runs the podcast called Career Talks. And it's a really great show. You see it on LinkedIn a lot, and check out his podcast. He puts a lot of great work into it. He's had a lot of great guests. I was on last year talking about job scams. I want to replay that for you, just so you can hear some of the basics that I have discussed all along, reiterated here. And there are probably a couple of things about the interview I probably would have said differently now that I know more about job scams and fake companies and how they work. But having said that, I can't reenact the spirit that was given in. So I'm going to just let it play out. If you do have any other questions about this interaction, again, go check out and subscribe to Career Talks, which is by Orlando Haynes. It's a wonderful podcast. I listen to it as often as I possibly can. Honestly, I haven't listened in a few months, but I always caught some excerpts for at least most of his guests at one time, and still is a great show. It's just that you get so busy, podcast becomes second-handed other than creating your own. So there you have it.
So, what are some things that job seekers need to look out for to identify whether or not it's like Trump says fake news, it's a fake job?
Yeah, usually scammers are the first line of scams have started with being able to extort money from potential candidates, and they find it very easy to get these jobs. They somehow qualified. They don't know how people got their names. And usually, as we begin to learn that scammers are looking all over the internet for any bit of information to build a profile on you, so that they know what they're going to seek out anybody that's seeking a job. They find you, they know that you've been looking for a while. You might have an air of desperation. You may not say, I'm desperate, but if you've been looking for a while, they're assuming that you're desperate, and probably 1 out of 7 people actually have fallen into, and that's not an exact statistic there. There are people who are falling for these scams and falling victims because of the way that they feel having to endure a lengthy job search, having to try to find the right remote possibility of a remote job, which they also know that you want and what most people want. And then they want a great job that you don't have to do a whole lot at. And that's where the other piece comes in, that the job is relatively easy. That's all I have to do for $50 an hour. And people think they found a gold mine. But even these scammers have become much more sophisticated and layered in their approach. They're much more thoughtful. So they've actually gone and even copied a site and made it close to the real thing. So let's say NVIDIA, which is a big tech company, is one of the biggest ones in the world. They actually, and this actually happened, where a job seeker was approached by a recruiter with somebody who is actually in the company, the exact name and the exact department. Now, we can argue later, which I found out that person wasn't even recruiting for that position, which everybody should find out and have some intel on that. But they mentioned 2 names. You could find LinkedIn profiles on those names. So anybody looking and say, oh, those are actual names. Okay, until you do the other part. Contact the person that actually, and they said, who called you, and say, hey, let's connect on LinkedIn. They don't respond. Now, not to say that everybody is on LinkedIn. It is a half a chance. But you do need some kind of verification. But scammers play on that. They play on your lack of due diligence. And they understand your behaviors better than you do. Most people would fall into it. They go through an interview and they will get good questions. The questions aren't bad. A lot of times they aren't weird, but sometimes you'll find in those transactions that something might be a little wrong. So when you feel that, you've got to stop. A lot of people say, maybe that person's just quirky, or maybe since they said that this was a special situation they're hiring for, that's why you don't do the job posting. Or maybe the job was posted on Indeed or LinkedIn. People found those. You should check every avenue while you are in the process, or before you start the process, rather. But anyway, people fall hook, line, and sinker. But then there's a caveat. So, oh, we need you to, we need your account so we can send you this check, but we're going to send it in a certain way. And it all ends up that you put the bill for whatever they say it is, like sending you equipment. We just need you to pay for it. You just send us the receipt back and whatever the process is, but you end up putting the bill, you end up getting scammed out of money anywhere from $800 to $5,000 or more. And you've been scammed. Now, the first instinct most people should feel is that this is too good to be true, but then it gets weird. And most big companies, especially if you were to go to NVIDIA, you go to one of their pages, they'll tell you exactly what the hiring process is.
Mhm.
So that's why I say that people don't do their due diligence. They would have, that person would have saved themselves a lot of money. But instead, you wanted a job bad. And unfortunately, when he contacted me, it was like too late because he was already in the middle of it, but he felt something was off. He saw that I was writing about it. And by the time we looked up everything, the person they said that they had the right name, but that wasn't that person. So
It's
all in
it's
all, they go ahead.
no, I was gonna say it shocks me to think that at this stage in 2020, even from 2020, 1, 2, 3, 4, that
Mhm.
people would think that there are companies that wherever in the process have you send money in some form of fashion, whether it's say, hey, we do have an application fee. Now I've seen something where there are companies that say, hey, and they're leveraging it as a weeding out process for a sales role that they're willing, and it's a commission role. I think I've seen it on YouTube or something
Mhm.
where they're saying, hey, once you fill out this process, this application, submit $25. That's how we know you're serious. So if you complete that, and then the $25 is supposed to get donated to charity. But to think that a
Right.
company, the moment they're asking for any kind of financial transaction, well, that's the massive red flag. It just shocks me to think, Mark, that people today are still thinking that's part of the game or
But
that's
I
the
think
process
it's
they have to
but
go through.
but I think it's really, you got to ask yourself, if somebody contacts you, they say that they think that you're a great fit. Ask them
Mhm.
how. Ask them how do they know that? And if it doesn't seem right, that often should tell you, hey, let me check you out. And Amrit, you've got to be very shrewd with them or with anybody that's contacted. It should
And
be a
so
red
what's
flag for
funny
you.
because I'll get messages like on WhatsApp. Of course, these people in a whole different countries saying, hey, this is what it is. And I like to engage the conversation to see how far
Mhm.
it'll go. But it's just hilarious to think that they're saying, hey, yep, all you got to do is sign up here and then we'll pay you $75 a day or 100 and whatever a day just to go do X. It was like, really? Come on.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that,
Wh-
and the other side of that is that employers are being more careful
Mm,
in applicants. And I have seen where employers are actually getting or taking some extra steps to make sure that they're getting a real person that's applying, because
wow.
technology makes it
What's
so
that?
that people, one of the things that I don't know if you've heard of, deep fakes are AI generate, or one of the ways is artificial intelligence can, or a version of it can generate a video and can
Mhm.
use anyone's voice
Yep.
to respond to questions or make or have conversations. And they didn't switch to having to and some people ended up being hired. There's a case in Japan, I believe, where an employee thought he was talking to another employee across the way. They said, "Hey, we just need some information, blah, blah, blah." And whatever their process was, it ended up costing the company $25 million just because this employee thought that he was talking to a real person. Yeah, there's many layers to scams. It's not just job seekers getting fooled. It's companies that are also getting scammed in different ways. And that's why we need to make sure that this is a real person. And there's going to be even more reactions as the scams become even more sophisticated. And in fact, they really don't even just give you another event. And when we hear about things overseas, don't think for a second it won't happen here in the States. It will. Trust me, it
Right.
will. And this is a case where this company in Asia actually have reported that they called them resume looters. And what they were able to do, they were able to hack the job portals of 7 or so job portal companies. And they were able to scrape information, private data from applications and resumes.
Really?
It's unbelievable that we're to a place now that we all could be facing scams unless we're doing all the right things to verify that we are talking to the person who say that they are.
That's insane. That's insane. When it comes to what platforms should we be on high alert from? Is it the WhatsApps,
All of
the Indeeds? We always Indeed,
all of them.
even
LinkedIn,
LinkedIn.
we need to be. Yes, we need to be, because there have been
Builder,
scams posted on
Monster, all of
LinkedIn.
them.
Yeah, all of them. You need to be cautious and vigilant on all of them. But it doesn't just stop there. Everybody's getting an uptick in scam call, texts,
Mhm.
emails. All of those are potentials to lure people into the abyss, or the matrix, we should call it, of scams. So everything you should be able to, you got to look at everything. Even if you had a Zoom call with someone, make sure that that actual person, because the I don't know if you use, I'll give you an example. I don't know if you use Descript to edit your podcast. I use Descript, and it has a lot of AI little tools. So let's say I say something, you and I have a portion of the conversation that you want to cut out, or you had a sentence that you want to correct. You can go in and use AI, and in your voice say something different than the actual sentence. Can you imagine if that's available or there? Can you imagine what's available to those very tech savvy scammers who are masquerading as recruiters, career coaches, masquerade as resume writers, and masquerade as hiring managers and executives of companies? It's quite elaborate what people can do now with the technology that we have at our fingertips.
So just to clarify for folks that will listen or listening, is that one of the red flags obviously is a request for any kind of financial exchange. What are some additional red flags as you're in the midst of the conversation that we should be again aware of, to be like, oh, that's not real? And this is meeting through email. If it's through email, if it's
Right.
through Messenger, you haven't reached the stage of a face-to-face Zoom call. It's just all through text and email and stuff like that. What are some additional things that get called out to, like, hey, that's a red flag?
Well, a good recruiter is going to try to make himself as credible as possible. Hopefully these days that they're doing that. If they're not, then we should be questioning, and you should be asking questions and looking for second and third party verification. What's nice about LinkedIn is that they're contacting you LinkedIn, and they have that check mark of verification. That means that recruiter has worked through LinkedIn and has verified their identity. So that's one That's one little dirty haven that we have for right now that you're talking to the actual person. So that will actually work. If you don't have that, then you should call the company, see if they're actually recruiting. Don't ask the person for that number one, or you can ask, but don't call the number they gave you. Make sure it matches the one the company had, and make sure the company's actually recruiting for that particular position. Because if they're not verifying it, don't go any further. And understand too that another way to really take yourself and make yourself have a more secure job search is just to make sure that you are doing the right things and that you're putting yourself and you're coming across the right. You don't want to misrepresent because these days, because people will take advantage of your lack of knowledge that people can see through very often. And on top of that, too, if you're active on LinkedIn and places like that, people can see that you're real. But at the same time, you want to make sure that they're real. So you do those second and third verifications as you possibly can to make sure you're talking to a real recruiter. When you see a job posting and you see a job description, you might have a question about, look through LinkedIn and verify with the recruiter that actually, a lot of times recruiters are posting those same jobs that are already up on the job boards. Not always, but a lot of times they are.
Mm-hmm.
And they can give you more information about that, as you well know. But the recruiters are also having to make sure that they're contacting the real person if they see a candidate that they like. So if you have partial information in your LinkedIn profile, you don't want to look like the scammers, because that's what the scammers are doing. They're making out partial profiles, they're posting stock photos on there, and you can almost tell it is by looking at them and thinking that they're a real person. But then after, when the scam is done, they've already got your money. Those profiles are gone. So there's a lot of ways that people need to be careful, but definitely you have to scrutinize everything.
Yeah. So when it comes to the job search trends, let's pivot there.
Okay.
What are you seeing happening in that side of the market?
I think a lot of people are talking about ghost jobs, and it's been a topic for a while. Really, there's some things that are old, but they're new, in the sense that it's been for years, and it happens all the time when an employee posts a job and they even hire someone, they won't take the job down for several months. And in fact, there was a study through Fortune magazine that, that employers not only admit that, but that even lie about who if they hired for that position or not. The people who are applying to ghost jobs, they're never hearing back. And if you're securing your job search and if you're doing the right things, you may not have to wait for one single company to call you back, but you are where you are. So people, they see that they're qualified and they may feel that they're 100% qualified, but yet they don't get a call because they have already hired for the job. So in that particular sense, the ghost jobs are the ones that, not saying that they're fake jobs like the scammers, but these jobs do exist, but the company's already hired and filled that position. They're just trying to fill the pipeline. And even though that's like an old thing, the new take on it is, what difference is that going to be between them and the scammers? Because in the sense that both are collecting data, and nobody asks the actual company, the real company, you're filling the pipeline, are you just holding that information? Or do you have another purpose for that information? Those are the questions we need to know. And employers should put something on their website or in their job posting that all information is collected It's just used to scrutinize for the job or to make sure that you are a fit for the job. But a lot of postings don't have that. And a lot of websites with the job postings don't have that information. I think it makes it a very interesting time where you've got to scrutinize everything, but at the same time, you've got to ask, okay, once you get my information, what are you doing with it? Because you had me fill out a whole application with where I live, my phone number, etc. And you're not doing anything with that information. Why would I believe you? That's something
It's
that
funny
I
you say
think.
that because
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I seen one particular posting pop up every 3 months. And
Mhm.
I look at it and it'll say, depending if you have the premium on LinkedIn, how many exact applications. It used to show 500, 600, 1,000, 3,000. And I'm like, wow. I was like, yep, that's pretty much the market we're in. But then 3 months later, it would pop up again. I'm like, there's no way. But I've seen that happen like at least 3 times, the same row. I'm like, there's no way you're continuously refreshing this role and I'm seeing this many applicants come through the pipeline. So you start to wonder, is this one of these ghost type postings, or like you said, they're just collecting data, don't know what's
And what are
happening
they doing with that?
I'm like,
I want to know what they're doing with
exactly.
that data. Are they using that data and selling it to another company?
Mm.
That's a thing. That's been a thing for years,
Yeah.
where people will collect kinds of data from all types of places. And the next thing you know, the way that you filled out the data is exactly the mailing you get from somebody else. So
I
really,
mean,
it's kind
if
of
you
like
think about it, it's pretty genius.
it's pretty genius, but it goes back to days when you go to the mall and you thought,
Yep.
into the
Yep.
sweepstake for a cruise. And I remember one time I said, I'm going to fill this out, but I'm not going to put my
Stamp.
first name. I'm just going to put M, and then I'm going to put dice, and then I'll
Mhm.
fill out something. And sure enough, company, they sold that information because I got 3, 4, 5, 6 of the pieces of mails from different places where they sold
Yep.
that information. They had no intent of giving away a sweepstake. But having said that, that doesn't mean employers aren't doing the same thing. Now, I know there are
Mm.
people who will say that companies wouldn't do that. Yeah, they would. Until they tell us, the rest of us, something. It's an old trick to make money. That's where people, like, again, you've got to use strategies. When you fill out your application, use a Google number so then I'll have your actual number. The one thing I thought about is that your actual number, they can actually, and I know I'm veering back to scams, but ghost jobs, it becomes a scam if they're not really doing what they say they're doing with it.